Why do people hoard? That's a really interesting question.
First off, I want to say I think we all hoard. We're all hoarders to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, we hoard because we keep things we don't need. We all have unnecessary shit, but there's an acceptable range, right?
Right, like you can have a junk drawer. You can have 15 boxes in your garage. I've been to many houses, you can't even walk in the garage really. There's a path to the car and that's it.
That's not hoarding though. Like, when does hoarding start?
When the stuff starts to impact your quality of life, that's when I think you might be a hoarder.
Right, like if you can't walk around your house because there's boxes to the ceiling and a Millennium Barbie's poking you in the butt, that's hoarding.
Right, it's like once there's a real difference to your life. I actually looked it up, and according to the ADAA, the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, I'm surprised I haven't heard of it before. I think I'd be the president of it. I got plenty of that going on. These are known, when we talk about it impacts your life, that's what's known as a functional impairment. And these can include things like loss of living space, social isolation, family or marital discord, financial difficulties, and health hazards.
Yeah, I mean, I have all of those things, but I think that's just because I live in Manhattan.
You can't not be a hoarder if you live in New York City.
I really do want to know, why do people hoard?
Well, the ADAA says people hoard because they believe an item will be useful or valuable in the future. They feel it will have sentimental value, it's unique, it's irreplaceable, or it's like too good of a bargain to throw out. Or maybe they just can't decide where something belongs, so it's better just to keep it.
I disagree. That doesn't really seem why people hoard. Those are the reasons that people say they hoard, but I don't know that that's the real reason why.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Like if I say I cut myself and you say, well, why are you doing that? And I say, well, it's because I deserve to suffer, or because I want to make the pain on the outside feel like the pain on the inside. That's the reason I'm saying I'm doing it, but that's not really the reason I'm doing it.
Exactly. Like I have a food blog and I love food, but what I really love is attention.
Right. Okay. I guess a food blog is the most fun kind of hoarding food photography. Well, before I did further research, I thought to myself, like, when have I hoarded, so to speak? Because I started off saying we all hoard, and I have a thing I've always done. I keep huge boxes of wires.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty crazy. I have a bunch of baseball and basketball cards from childhood. I never look at them. They're not worth anything, but I kind of keep them for nostalgia. Why do you keep the wires?
I keep the wires because I guess it's kind of like a lot like the reasons the ADAA says people hoard. I'm like, well, what if I need a wire? And once in a blue moon I do. Who doesn't need an HDMI cable once a year, right? Your brother brings over his old Xbox. Hey, how can we hook this thing up to something? Well, I got a wire for that. Let's check the box.
So you have these unnecessary things that you don't need, all these wires and everything. Mm-hmm. So why is your life not just a bunch of towering boxes? You know what I mean? Like old play sets, box sets of Seinfeld, etc.
I have Seinfeld, actually.
Hoarder.
Okay. Now, for one, I think the reason it doesn't go farther, right? Everyone has a few unnecessary things. There's people in my life that have pushed the hoarding down a little bit, right? Social structures. My girlfriend said the box of wires. She said that's unacceptable. This is no way to live. I mean, I'm actually lying. It wasn't a box. It was just a bag of wires. And yes, they were all tangled. It took like an hour to get that cable out. She's like, look, this is no way to live. She made me organize my wires.
I love the bag thing. That's a funny distinction because a box does seem a little more reasonable, but I guess it is a slippery slope.
Okay, fine. I mean, I'm definitely reducing how much of a hoarder I've been. Like, I used to have like 5 computers, Anthony. I don't know why. It made me feel safe to have 5, like in case 4 fail. I had an old monitor box in my room for like 2 years, and I had a small New York room. Like, it didn't really make sense. I had a broken camera. I'm a tiny hoarder. I'm not going to lie to you.
Wait, you saved a broken camera?
Yeah, I took a selfie with it.
Oh, come on, man. You're not that ugly.
Hey, it broke because I dropped it, you motherfucker. No.
Social structures, you said, they keep us from hoarding.
Yeah, sure. It's like my girlfriend in my case, or also in everyone's case, it's like the family you grew up with, right? Like my family has a clean house. So when I think of a house, when I think of a happy space, I think of like an uncluttered space. Most people probably do. I mean, what's the classic mom quote? It's not cover your room with stuff. It's clean your room, right? Exactly. It's not hold on to everything you ever receive. So like we're all kind of culturally conditioned. So now I stuff all my wires in a nice, neat box where they're hidden and out of sight. And I actually have a bunch of boxes that are labeled too.
That's awesome. And I think that's how most people, quote unquote, hoard. You know what I mean? They put the boxes in the attic, the garage, but the real hoarding, the true hoarding, why does that happen?
So I did a lot of research, and at first I kind of ran into some people, like some say it's OCD.
Wow, that's shocking. When I think OCD, I think perfectly clean and organized, the opposite of hoarding.
Yeah, I see you on that. I mean, it seems almost nice. You're like, sure, I have OCD, but, at least everything is super clean. But I actually found out that the whole clean OCD thing, it's kind of like a stereotype. Because, right, I think it's like a cultural thing. Like, if you go out to eat with someone and you, like, keep cleaning the table, your friends will be like, oh, OCD. But this guy, I looked up this quote, and Dr. John Abramowitz, he wrote on everydayhealth.com, quote unquote, neat freaks like being neat. They feel like it helps them and keeps them productive. But people with OCD wish they weren't that way. They feel that they have to do their rituals in order to prevent some dreaded catastrophe that is unlikely in the first place. OCD is based on fear.
I guess now that I think about it, not all people with OCD are necessarily clean.
Actually, according to this guy, only a fraction of OCD involves cleanliness or neatness. I guess that's just kind of built into the stereotype. But just when you think about the idea of being obsessive, then it's easier to tie that into hoarding, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's an obsessiveness to thinking everything could be useful.
Right, because it's true. And because everything can be useful. Let me keep my wires, Mommy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why everybody's a little bit of a hoarder, because there is some uncertainty on whether or not you'll need a cable box or a box set of Seinfeld some point in the future.
Right, like maybe you don't need to plug in an old printer, but maybe you need a wire to do BDSM. I don't know. It's not illegal.
Or like a Seinfeld box set,
Okay.
The Cabin in the Woods doesn't have Wi-Fi.
Right.
Right, you know what I mean? You need to light a fire for fun. What better thing to burn?
Oh my God. I can't even process that. You don't like Seinfeld. Anyway, here's the kicker. Most hoarders actually don't have OCD. An article in Time says only about 18% of people with hoarding symptoms meet the full criteria for OCD as it's currently defined.
So that makes sense. I mean, I doubt that a person that washes their hand 10 times or turns a stove on and off several times or whatever would be content with a bunch of stuff in their space.
Yeah, like that's a little obsessive. Hoarding's a little obsessive, but they're not really the same thing. And they actually did a study. They did a study where they brought in hoarders, people with OCD, and undiagnosed people. And they said, bring in your junk mail and we're going to have you either keep it or shred it. And what they found was that, well, the hoarders kept more of the junk mail. That goes without saying. But the part of the brain that lit up on the hoarders lit up much more excessively. And that part of the brain is called the anterior cingulate cortex. And it's the part of the brain that deals with
owning box sets of Seinfeld?
Uncertainty is what it actually is.
Well, look, I can say with certainty, it's 2019. Stream it, baby.
Okay, thanks to the Netflix promo. You have some OCD for some streaming. Michael Hollander, director of the Autism and OCD program at the Albert Einstein School of Medicine in New York, says, one of the characteristics of hoarding is that people feel this sense of discomfort if they feel like they may be giving away something that they could use in the future.
Which we all do.
He compares it to a check engine light that keeps flashing on the dash for no reason. Now, a healthy person like you or I, a healthy poor person like you or I would be like, I am not checking that. Are you kidding me? That's going to cost money. But a hoarder would become obsessively focused on it. So it's not that there's some kind of weird person. We can all relate to them. It's just that they can't keep the degree in check. They keep worrying about the check engine light.
Yeah, right. Like at a certain point, I will say, look, I don't need this old typewriter I found. I don't need a phone cable. Remember phone lines?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
A phone. It was like a charger, but it contained a sound. Eee! I don't know what a phone sounds like.
Don't remember a dial tone?
No.
We're just going to keep that, even though that's not what the script was. Yee! That's what you thought phones sounded like? So a hoarder is just like someone who can't draw the line. They can't say there's absolutely no reason to own a giant teddy bear that was only partially consumed by fire 5 years ago.
Who would need that?
Yeah, and they might be able to rationally understand it, but emotionally they'll feel like, but what if I'm doing props for a movie and we need a giant stuffed animal that was partially burned 5 years ago?
All right, fair enough. But why, though? Why? Why is a hoarder's brain different than most people's? You know what I mean? Why does their interior thing go crazy when they have to make these decisions?
Anterior cingulate cortex. Don't forget it, because we're going to be talking about it for the rest of our lives. No, look, it's not fully understood. Some say it's genetic. Some say it runs in families.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're just a hoarder because your family was hoarders. You know what I mean? It could be a learned behavior.
Exactly. Now, there are some things, though, that tend to go with hoarding, okay? So, like, one thing is hoarders tend to live alone.
See, maybe you would be a hoarder, but luckily you live with your girlfriend. She saved you from yourself.
Right. And here's my favorite hoarding fact. It's very intuitive. This is kind of what I thought when we started working on this video, that hoarding comes from like past poverty or hardship, right?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like you were poor, you never had enough stuff, so now you finally get some stuff, so hold on to everything.
It makes perfect sense. It's exactly false.
What? No way.
Yeah, I'm serious. According to the International OCD organization, research just hasn't supported this idea. It's just not that simple, and it makes so much sense, but it just isn't that. They do say that experiencing a traumatic event like the death of a spouse or a serious loss may lead to a worsening of hoarding behavior.
So I guess it really does come from a deeper place.
It's very deep. And I think much like other coping mechanisms, like smoking or being promiscuous, emotional eating, you can't just smash out the behavior and think you've solved the problem.
So wait, you're telling me that if I use sex as a coping mechanism, right? And
Sure.
then you make me wear a banana suit so no one wants to have sex with me, that won't solve my depression?
I guess. I'm confused at how you associated so quickly with a banana suit. No, it really won't, okay? You have to hit the root cause. Because I think whenever people think of hoarders, they think like, I just want to clean their house. I just want to clean their house. And that has happened. Attempts to clean out the homes of people who hoard without treating the underlying problem, however, and this is according to the International OCD org, they fail. Families and communities spend many hours, thousands of dollars cleaning these people's homes only to find the problem recurs, often within just a few months. Can you imagine how frustrating that is?
Yeah, I mean, that's a nightmare, but it doesn't surprise me that they would backslide. Unfortunately, people have to want to change. And also, it's very disrespectful to throw away someone's stuff, even if they objectively have too much.
Yeah, some specifics that the IOCD organization recommends is challenging their thoughts and going out without buying anything or without bringing anything extra home. It's kind of getting them in a habit where it's like you don't need to constantly add stuff. You can also do stuff like make a plan to prevent future clutter.
That's really smart. Challenging their thoughts, you know what I mean? That seems like a really respectful way to help them stop hoarding.
Yeah, and I think respect is a huge thing based on what I'm reading. Like, ultimately, it is a right. It's their right to keep their space however they want. So, like, when you take away their stuff, they don't really like that. If you want to help them, you have to team up. You have to ask them questions. You have to develop trust. These are good ways to address the behavior. You don't want to make them wear the equivalent of a banana suit. Let them keep their stuff.
Okay, so I have one more question. What is the difference between hoarding and collecting?
That's a good one. The OCD Foundation says that almost always collectors want to display their stuff. They want to show it off, and it's usually really well organized. Whereas hoarders usually don't want to show off their possessions, and they're usually, well, not organized. They're a straight up hoard, dog.
I think I get it, but could you sum it up?
Hoarders hoard because they don't deal with uncertainty very well. Why? Well, we're not really sure, but it may be genetic, it may be learned, but in the end, the most important thing in helping out a hoarder is being empathetic toward them, respecting their stuff, and kind of like OCD, it comes from a deeper place. Like the OCD person doesn't want a clean house. They fear what will happen if they don't do their rituals. The hoarder fears what will happen if they get rid of their stuff, so you got to respect that.
That's fair. And, you know, I have a friend, he has thousands of toys and retro games and lots of depression too, but no.
Oh boy.
His entire house is basically a display case, and it's very well organized, and it's aesthetically pleasing. The whole house is literally like, it looks like a comic book store basically. It's just glass.
Wow.
It's aesthetically pleasing. He's put a lot of money into this.
Wow.
So it's like almost museum-esque. But it's like, is it because it's very aesthetically pleasing, it's fine, or no?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If you're so obsessed with your collection and like that's all you do and you pour all this money into it, that can be a little bit like obsessive and like a hoarder. You're like, oh, it smells bad in here. The place is filled with trash. But like you can kind of always go too far with something. Hoarding just happens to be, well, it's something we all know about.
Exactly.
They should do a TLC show like Crazy Collectors.
That probably exists.
I collect human bones. That's definitely not okay. They're organized. All right, we'll leave. I don't know what's going to happen. Anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed this explanation. We've had a ton of fun. If you'd like more from us, please check out our other clips, or even better, our podcast, where we talk about concepts like empathy, relationships, and
assholes.
Yes, it's called Am I the Asshole? And basically people submit situations and they ask like who is in the wrong and why. They're real life situations.
Exactly. And we're not experts. We're learning and we're trying our best. And yeah, check it out.
And we hope you join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Please join the convo.
Link in the description.